Hello and welcome back to revise GCSEhistory.co.uk, the #1 place for your GCSE history revision. This video today is video 1 in the topic the end of the Plains Indians, and in this video today we're going to be looking at the destruction of the buffalo. Alright, so let's make a start. So, the destruction of the buffalo. Between 1840 and 1885, the buffalo on the Great Plains were hunted to almost extinction. So, the numbers fell from an estimated 30 million in 1840 to just 200 in 1885. So, 200 is not very many at all. By 1875, the southern herd were destroyed, and by 1883, the northern herd was destroyed. Settlement on the edge of the plains, construction of the railroads across the plains, the destruction of the buffalo's natural habitat, and the introduction of new diseases all contributed to the destruction of the buffalo. So, hunting the buffalo for sport is one of the ways that the buffalo were destroyed. So, to begin with, the buffalo were hunted for food and sport. Hunting increased when railroads reached the Great Plains. Special excursion trains were run so that people could go out and shoot the buffalo for sport. Buffalo hunters were also employed to keep railroad workers supplied with fresh meat. So hunting the buffalo for sport is a way that the buffalo were destroyed by 1885. The buffalo were also hunted for hides. So, in 1871, an Eastern tannery discovered a way to produce high-quality leather from buffalo hides. And buffalo hides are these sort of skins here, as you can see, the buffalo skins basically. And the discovery of this way to produce a high-quality leather from buffalo hides caused the price of buffalo hides to increase. Railroads could transport the hides east to the tanning industry. Hunters were armed with powerful rifles with a long range so they could kill lots of buffalo. And hunters killed using a method called a stand, which is an extremely effective way of hunting buffalo. They could kill lots of buffalo very quickly to get the hides, sell them to the tanning industry in the east. Another reason that the buffalo were hunted is for their bones. So hunters were only interested in hides, but collectors or bone pickers collected buffalo skeletons and took them to railroads where they were sent east. In the east, buffalo bones were made into fertilizer, buttons, combs, and even knife handles. So, they're buffalo bones. So far we've looked at hunting buffalo for sport, hunting buffalo for hides, and hunting buffalo for bones. So what was the Plains Indian response to all this hunting and all this destruction of the buffalo? So, the Indians realised what was happening, and this resulted in warfare on the Great Plains. Some Plain Indian nations attacked buffalo hunters in 1874. So they attacked buffalo hunters on the Great Plains because they realised what they were doing and realised that they were destroying their traditional way of life. But it was impossible for the Indians to fight men that were armed with guns. Obviously the hunters had guns for killing the buffalo. So when the buffalo herds were destroyed, the Indians had no source of food or shelter, and they were forced to move on to the reservations. So, if you remember back, we did a video in the very first topic of the American West that explained that the buffalo provided all the necessities for life. For example, skin for clothing and teepees, meat for cooking, dung for fuel. But the destruction of the buffalo meant that the traditional way of life for the Indians was totally destroyed. The Indians had no source of food, especially, and they had to live on the reservations and became dependent on the US Army. Okay, so we've actually covered all the knowledge we need to go over for this video today. Here are 4 quick questions based on the content of today's video. Pause the video here if you like, and scribble down some answers to these questions. If not, carry on watching, we'll simply discuss them together. Question 1. Give 2 ways in which the building of the railroad on the Great Plains increased the hunting of buffalo for sport. Well, they were special excursion trains. They were put on so that hunters could travel onto the plains and hunt the buffalo for sport, shoot them and stuff. And also, buffalo hunters were employed to keep railroad workers supplied with fresh meat. So there are two ways that the building of the railroad increased the amount of hunting of the buffalo that was done for sport. Special excursion trains and buffalo hunters were employed to keep the railroad workers supplied with fresh meat. What did an eastern tannery find could be made from buffalo hides? We said that high quality leather could be made from buffalo hides. And what could buffalo skeletons be used for? Well, in the east they were made into fertilizer, knife handles. These are buffalo bones, aren't they? Combs and buttons. Question 4. What did the destruction of the buffalo mean for the Plains Indians? Well, it was the end of their traditional way of life. No longer self-sufficient, they became dependent on the US Army to survive. No longer self-sufficient because they couldn't hunt the buffalo. And if you're unsure of why the buffalo was so important to the Plains Indians, check back to topic 1 of the American West topic and this video on surviving on the Great Plains that explains why the buffalo was so important to the Plains Indians. Okay, so these are the answers to these 4 questions. Thanks for watching this video today on the destruction of the buffalo. The next video on this topic is the government system of the reservations. Thanks for watching, good luck with your studies, see you soon.